ATS presents the Realty Debate, powered by Tata Capital, with Manisha Natarajan.
What are the predictions for the Indian property market in 2016? Will apartment and house prices go up, stay stable, or go down? I'm hit by this question regularly and increasingly as we approach a brand new year. Unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball which answers that. What I do have with me today are the three most respected voices in the real estate industry to tell us what's going on and help us foresee the Indian property markets, also decode them. Hello and welcome to the Realty Debate on home prices. What to expect in 2016? I'm Manisha Natarajan, and with me today are Anita Arjundas, Managing Director and CEO of Mahindra Lifespaces Developers, Pirojsha Godrej, Managing Director and CEO of Godrej Properties, Brotin, Banerjee, Managing Director and CEO of Tata Housing. Anita and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me today. I think it's taken us 3.5 years of doing the property show to get the three largest corporates in India's real estate on the same table. So thanks so much for making the time. The answers that I'd like from all three of you, let me just say which are the ones which are weighing heavy on every home buyer's mind. Number one, what is responsible for the big slowdown in real estate in 2015? Everyone has a different theory. We need to know what really happened. For all the sellers or investors of property who are sitting on property, when will prices of residential property recover and what will it take for them to start climbing up again? And our third question, for those waiting to buy a home or property, will prices come down further and will homes become more affordable? Okay, so we've set the stage. Pirojsha Godrej, starting with you. What happened in 2015? It was literally the most sentiment-wise, both for developers and buyers and sellers, the most negative year, sentiment-wise for sure.
Yeah. Well, great to be with you, Manisha, and particularly here with Anita and Brotin. Looking forward to the discussion. Look, I think there's no doubt that 2015 has been a tough year for the sector. And as you rightly said, I think for broad swaths of the sector, it's been a little bit of gloom and doom. But I think, like with everything else, there are silver linings. I think this is a very cyclical sector. I don't believe that demand for homes in India doesn't exist or this year has vanished for the long term. I think the economy has been going through a bit of a slowdown. I think interest rates had risen quite high. I think general sentiment, which is very important in this sector, has been quite weak. Now, all of that, though, is temporary, because I think if you look at it, during the year, interest rates have started coming down. I think most economic forecasts project far better GDP growth in the couple of years ahead. And I think all of that will lead to improved sentiment, which in turn will drive the sector forward. So I think, there's no need for
the gloom and doom story that media keeps painting.
Exactly. I think, while there is definitely things to be concerned about, and it's been a tough year, I'm very confident that we'll recover.
Anita Arjundas, let me just ask you then a very, very direct question. We are blamed a lot for saying unsold inventory at an all-time high, 7, 8, 9 lakh homes across the country unsold. Developers also have a big problem on how this inventory is calculated, this whole fear which is created amongst the buyer's mind that things are not selling at all. Are they right in believing that yes, sales have slowed down, but the numbers that keep flashing, is there a question mark around them?
Sales have slowed down definitely, but I don't agree that there aren't customers out there wanting to buy products. There's still a whole bunch of end users out there who want to buy quality products, invest in a home. The investor community, yes, has kind of slowed down. So they definitely have taken a bit of a backseat from real estate in the last 1 year in 2015. And I would say that's been driven by the fact that prices have been stable in the last 1 year. So they really haven't been seeing the potential upside that they could get.
So investors have disappeared?
Investors have, I wouldn't say disappeared, but they definitely have diminished in terms of their contribution to the real estate sector. So that's been one reason for the slowdown. If you look at the inventory levels, and I think there are different numbers being floated around by everyone, but I think what's important to see is where is that inventory located, what stage of construction and execution it is in. Many of the projects that are sitting there as launched inventory have done no construction for the last 3 to 4 years. So they're sitting there as almost idle projects not really being taken forward. And therefore, there's a complete stop both in terms of sales and construction on those projects. But having said that, at an overall level, yes, inventory levels are definitely higher than what we'd like to see in the industry.
Okay.
And I think that goes back to what Pirojsha mentioned about the fact that the overall economic environment has definitely been muted. This is a sector which, at the end of the day, is feel good. You need to feel confident about your future. You need to feel confident about the ability to earn better. To be able
And that's
to,
missing?
That's been missing definitely from the economy. No new investments announced by corporates. A lot of the investment that you've seen in the last 1 year has been driven by the government and not necessarily by the corporate sector. And I think those are important cues for people to feel comfortable about making large investments and large decisions.
Okay, fair enough. I'm going to, though, still come back. We need to actually look at that inventory overhang figure and say what's going on. So pockets of inventory overhang, but if I sum up the cities, what's going on? Well, some of the worst affected pockets, and these are large real estate markets, they're not tiny pockets. Greater Noida in 2012 did not do very well, 42 months. So it took for the current stock to 42 months to actually get sold. That inventory in 2015 has gone up to 62 months. So the existing supply will take 5 years to get absorbed. Simply put, that's what we are saying. Ghaziabad, another market, 56 months. Noida, so we talked about Greater Noida, but there's also Noida, which is 48 months. So 3 NCR markets, which clearly are in distress. If you look at Mumbai, though, it has a 38-month inventory overhang, Navi Mumbai 36 months, and Chennai 33 months. So these are Brotin worrying numbers. I don't think, I mean, in the last 4 years that we've been covering real estate, we've not seen such hold up of sales, let's say. And maybe some traction in the last 2 months, but there has been sort of a hold up for the entire 2015.
So I think, I mean, rather than focus on what has been, and I think my panelists have answered it very adequately, I would think that we need to focus on what we need to do to ensure that the time ahead is better for all of us and for the industry in general. So I think for a large number of players, what they would be doing is looking at this number and thinking of future launches should be at a price point at which they will be able to move stock. I think one of us was speaking about there being an entire focus on velocity premium rather than on the price premium, which used to be the case with all of us maybe a couple of years back. So you will reprice your product, you will reprice your packaging, you will reprice your typologies, at least in the apartment space going forward. So you would find that there are going to be a few builders and developers who are going to do exceedingly well, even in the market as nebulous as this. I think there's a great opportunity, and I think that we look at it as an opportunity because I think on the long run, this was required for us to learn a lesson, look at the right kind of pricing. We thought that the pricing will keep going up. It hasn't gone up. So it's a good time to look at it. There are certain worrying trends, but I think that the government is trying to look at what it can do to better it. I think the fact that the Real Estate Regulation Act, which will come in, will add a little bit to the buyer confidence because it's an act which has largely been configured keeping their interest in mind. Also, I think that the fact that a large number of projects are right now in the replanning stage, that should add to suit the current consumer requirement. I think these 2 or 3 things will add a lot of confidence in the marketplace.
Okay.
The fact that developers are now focusing on finishing their projects and bringing in the confidence level which is required, I think that also will add to buyers' confidence.
To some amount of confidence. Let's also look at one other strategy which developers have followed, and I'm sure we can take Mr. Godrej out of that equation because they've launched, I think, 9 projects this year. But overall, if you look at the new launches, there's been a big decline. Not going to go through micro market data, but MMR, let's just take 2 of the largest markets. MMR, there's been a decrease of 70%. NCR, which is Noida, Greater Noida and Gurgaon, there was a decrease of 52%. The base year we're taking is 2012 and what happened in 2015. Pirojsha Godrej, so overall, if I look at the way developers have responded to this sentiment negativity is by just reducing the number of launches. My question to you is, and this is something that I have always questioned, what happened to what kind of projects were launched? Was there not a complete mismatch of what really is the demand out there in Indian market in terms of affordability and what the supply has been?
I think, Manisha, that's a very important question, and I think we've seen that repeatedly in the real estate sector, frankly, both here in India and internationally and in different asset classes. So, for example, a few years ago, it was talked a lot about the oversupply of retail space because there were so many malls that were empty and being, underutilized. But the fact was that the malls weren't properly planned. They were not malls that people wanted to do in, and malls that were adequately planned were doing exceptionally well. So I think, there is an element of that that's currently taking place as well. That, there's been a mispricing and a misdesign of products in many, many places. And I continue to believe that the products that are appropriately priced, that are in locations people want to be in, that are brought to market by developers people trust, are really not seeing any dramatic slowdown. For example, we're extremely happy with our sales for this year. That said, I think one has to be able to, in this sector, kind of focus, both on managing the short term, but really preparing for the long term. Because there's no doubt in, I think, any of our minds that there's going to be tremendous demand for Indian real estate, and this is going to be a multi-decade long growth story. There's also probably no doubt in any of our minds.
Are we based, so when you say prolonged growth and a multi-decade growth, are you basing that on your demographic dividend? That the fact that there are so many young people and the entire urbanization story?
Yeah, well, I think any kind of fundamental data you look at or analysis you do would indicate that. So yes, one of the things would be the urbanization story. I think India today still has only 35% of its population living in cities. That is going to dramatically increase over the next few decades. Indian income is continually growing. Now, it may not grow as fast as all of us want, but 7-8% GDP growth is nothing to scoff at. And when countries go through this kind of a growth stage, this is a sector that always benefits disproportionately. So if you look at, say, Japan after World War II, or if you look at China over the last couple of decades, the scale of this sector is something that, we're nowhere even approaching. The big Chinese developers, for example, sell 150 million square feet in a single year. I think, if you ask all of us and we combine our sales for the entire history of our organizations, we might not get there.
All right. Okay. Fair enough. Anita, what's your own summary of, let's go to our second big question, which was that there are lots of sellers who are sitting in the market who have this question, who's going to blink first? I mean, is it the developer who's going to bring down prices further in 2016? Is that the way prices will start moving? Or, it's just a long wait in terms of the price tug of war? Do you believe that 2016 there will be some more softening of prices?
I think the developer has already blinked quite a bit in the last 1 year.
You believe so?
Definitely.
Nobody.
Yes.
Why are people outside not believing that? They still feel that the prices haven't come down enough.
I think look at data in terms of promotions, in terms of offers, in terms of the fact that almost most projects are today on payment link plans. So you pay 20% now, 80% on possession. That's straight discounting in a different form and manner. And there definitely are discounts out there on the table. I think prices in most markets have either remained flat, which is time discounting, or they definitely have corrected at a project to project level by 10 to 15%. So my personal view going forward as far as 2016 is concerned is that we'll see more stability and possibly some uptick in certain specific markets.
Brotin, would you agree that prices are not likely to come down further?
I think the prices will not come down further. What I think will happen is that a large amount of units will get, the ticket size will change. So you would find that the new projects which are coming up are catering to a lower ticket size. And that's not because the pricing will necessarily come down. It's just that they would lower the specs, or they would cut down on the sizes of the apartments. So going forward, I think, let's say compared to 3 years back, compared to the percentage of 3-bedroom apartments and 4-bedroom apartments, I think a lot more 2.5 bedroom apartments will continue to be built in the foreseeable future.
Okay.
I also feel that the industry itself, I think CREDAI as an organization or as an association body has already said that prices have come down by 15%. Obviously, for some developers it would be even more than that, given the level of desperation that there may exist. And for some it may be as low as 1 or 2% where they have adjusted the prices. But I think that we are really looking at the bottom of the barrel as far as pricing going down is concerned.
You're sure of that? Or do you believe that, the entire dynamics of the demand-supply mismatch, where so you have a lot of supply in premium apartments and there are no buyers there, will probably force, at least in a certain segment, a slightly higher priced apartments, some amount of further breakdown?
Manisha, I only think that it's a large part of that desperation is already there. It's only in the fact that I think whether the media is not able to pick it up because it's in a one-to-one transaction. So every customer today, especially where he's a premium or luxury house buyer, he's looking for a deal. So even if you were to give a standard, let's say 80-20 or a 20-80 scheme, you would still want a reduction of the premium, or you would want something free, the clubhouse or something like that. So that's already happening. So it is. I don't think it's going to go further, because you're really between the devil and the deep blue sea. If you look at construction cost, hasn't come down. Yes, steel and cement prices may have come down slightly, but labor cost has gone up. Statutory dues have gone up, and I don't see a very great reduction in land pricing happening.
Okay.
Unless that goes down, especially in a core city markets where you would like to acquire land, I don't think prices can come down even further than what it has.
All
Today,
right.
I think we could ask the panel what we think the prices have come down. I would hazard a guess that it has come down by as much as 15 to 25% in some of the projects in some markets, and that's a huge shot. I mean, 15 to 20% is maybe half or even more than the margin which most developers make.
Where are the margins now?
So
There's another perception, very popular perception that developers make a lot of money.
I think that's entirely that's not true. You may make it if you were a developer who is bringing into market historical land. But if you were to buy land at today's prices and you were to follow all the compliances, which I think all the corporate developers would be doing, and you would be following the rules and regulation, I would think that a margin between 15 to 20% adjusted to risk is probably a fair return for the buck.
So that's where the margins have come down to. So for seller and investors, or for let's say an individual seller, or who's probably also been an investor, if he was to want to sell his apartment, who's been holding on, Pirojsha, would you say hold on? Things are going to look up better? I mean, probably how long would that wait turn out to be?
Manisha, I would, but frankly, I always qualify this with saying that I have absolutely no clue what short-term price movements are going to do. Because, there are so many factors that are influencing them that I think it's beyond an individual or organization's ability to accurately project that. I think if somebody has a holding capacity beyond, say 12 months, certainly I think I would very confidently say that I would be personally shocked if real estate prices over a 2-3 year horizon are lower, or in fact aren't higher than they are today. As Brotin pointed out, there's very well understood pressures on the demand side, but I think the supply pressures on cost and things are less well understood. So however a developer chooses to respond to a current situation, even if they're in crisis, how is that fresh round of supply going to get created? Because no developer is going to bring in projects at a lower price to lose money, which is what they would be doing.
And your launches have gone down tremendously.
Exactly. So I think, the short term is very, very hard to project, but I think the medium term we can project with a greater deal of confidence.
All right. So you're saying if the holding capacity you have as a person who holds real estate property today, if you've got the holding capacity, hold on for 2 to 3 years, ain't going to go anywhere. It's only going to go up. But what about the buyer? I think we have to look at the buyer as well, who's been sitting on the fence, waiting for home prices to actually come down. Now, my other big question to the panel here is, have home prices in India outpaced wages or incomes in the top 8 to 10 metros? And if that's so, how do you make property more affordable? These are large 3 developers, India's largest. Can they make homes more affordable? We'll be back in just a moment.